Okay, these are the slides from the, I think it's actually the introductory chapter, not quite one and two. I'm not going to talk about these slides too much, but what I want to do is give you some context and talk about the questions that I want you to do in the discussion. So these questions you should address and answer in the discussion. So discussion topic one, how much money are we in the U.S. spending on healthcare per capita, so per person, compared to other countries? Is that value well spent? So if we're spending more money but we live longer, then you could argue that that's money well spent. If we're spending 10 times as much money and we're only living 2 years longer, is that really worth it? Depending on what these graphs are showing and these charts are showing, I want you to kind of make your observations. And then how is the money being spent? And compare what you find to the graphic in the text. So I want you to go onto the internet and go to cdc.gov, or I don't know if you'll find this on CDC, but do some internet searches, try to find some reputable sources and see how similar that information is compared to the information that was in the textbook. And then provide a hypothesis as to why the situation is the way that it is. And this is your best guess. This will be definitely opinion based, but it'll be interesting to see how each of you in the class kind of views this and things like that. So this is the graph that's from the textbook. It shows on the x-axis the years. So we're at 2018. So these would have been projections for some of these later ones. It's showing the healthcare costs in billions of dollars. This is billions of dollars per year. And then it's showing the healthcare cost as a percentage of the gross domestic product. So these dark lines, these dark lines are the costs, as a percentage, so 19, 18, 17, so on. And then this is 2.5 trillion because it's 2,500 billion, so 2.5 trillion. So whatever observations you want to make from that. And then this is a chart that's showing life expectancy. This is life expectancy, and this is showing you how much money per person is being spent. Thanks, great, you're killing me. Okay, let me go back. There we go. So this is showing how much money we are spending per person, roughly, and I would say it's probably fairly accurate. And then this is showing life expectancy. This is a breakdown of where those costs are going. One thing I will say here, because it's not listed, is I guess it's potentially listed here, healthcare, but it's healthcare at work sites. There's nothing listed here on prevention. Nothing that's listing about, hey, if we did diet and exercise, or how much money is spent on diet and exercise and aggressive prevention of these diseases. Nothing is listed there of that. And then this is showing how many healthy years and how many disabled years we're living. So this kind of goes a little bit at the quality of life types of issues. The men are living 68. The women are living 72, and then we're living an additional 8 or 9 years. But those years have a level of disability associated with them. So not all the life expectancy is healthy life expectancy. So the second discussion is death rates by risk factors. So what are the biggest risk factors? What are some observations you're making about the risk factors? Are there discrepancies between the risk factors? So is there information about a risk factor that seems inconsistent? A little later on, what are the costs associated with diseases? And also, look this information, especially the costs of diseases, up and see how they compare to the costs that are listed in the textbook. So this is showing the disease, or excuse me, the risk factor, and how much it contributes. You gotta be kidding me. Okay. How much it contributes. This is men, and the next one's women, and then you have for combined men and women. So you can see how much smoking contributes to cardiovascular disease, the black, how much it contributes to cancer, how much it contributes to diabetes, and how much it contributes to respiratory issues. So it kind of breaks it down by these different areas. And you can see it's a little different for the men versus the women. Not too terribly different. When they combine it, you're still seeing some similar information that's there. One observation that I would make is that they tease out the different aspects of health. So a lot of times we talk about healthy eating, and that would incorporate the dietary sodium, the seafood, or increasing the amounts of seafood, trans fats, intake of fruits and vegetables, the polyunsaturated free fatty acids. So you have a bunch of things that they teased it out. I don't know what would have happened. They would have had a greater effect if they were all combined together. And then this is showing you the costs, the annual prevalence. So that's the number of people that are living with the disease. We'll talk about that when we address the topics in particular. The annual death rates, and then the costs in US dollars. And this is from basically 2009. So when you look up this information, you might see numbers that are slightly different than this. So state those numbers, compare them to these numbers. I will add for something like this, I don't see it, might be in the textbook, but sometimes the way they list these things, they list it for direct healthcare costs and then indirect healthcare costs. So the direct or direct and indirect costs. So the direct costs would be going to the hospital, going to a doctor's office, taking medicine, things like that. The indirect costs would be lost wages, lost life, decreased lifespan, disability, costs associated with disability. So if you're on workman's compensation or Social Security, SSI, then those things would contribute to this number. They're costs associated with the disease, but they're not necessarily direct costs with the disease. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like what's in parentheses is more so addressing the direct costs, and then of that 475 billion, 187 billion of it is going to be direct medical costs. So you don't add them together. One is part of the other number. This kind of breaks down the causes of death, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check that one, actually. So then discussion 3, what are the benefits of physical activity? Provide any research-based information concerning the benefits of fitness and or physical activity as it relates to any aspect of health. I provided a JAMA research article. We did a discussion in the in-class session. You can look at what's in that article. That's a generalized news article, but the JAMA article is a research-based article. You can make some observations from that as well. These are the observations or the information from the textbook. So they're looking at the level of function and the level of physical activity of the individual. So if the individual is sedentary, what's their level of function as compared to a physically active individual? And I think something you need to keep in mind is how much physical activity, how much fitness do you really need to do your tasks of daily living? and if you get below that level, then it definitely affects your ability to live. But whether you're if you look over here, I mean, these people at this level and this level, they're still able to live. You think of a 10-year-old and you think of the emotional maturity of the 10-year-old, you're not thinking about the physical ability. Physically, they're able to live and take care of themselves just fine. Just emotionally, they're not there. But physically, they can do everything. They can go up and down steps. They can groom themselves, bathe themselves. They've got a level of independence. Yeah, they're not fully grown, but physically they can do everything they need to do to live. So when you're looking at the older individual, it's the same thing. Like they're still able to live even though they're not as fit as they once were. And these graphs, let's go back. I guess I just did the male and the female, but what this is showing you is that comparison. This is interesting, and there's some issues with it. And if you observe those issues, which I've observed, then definitely comment on things that you like, you don't like, don't make sense, you wish they would have included additionally into this graph. But this is showing you if you have low weight individuals, think of what your body mass index is. So think about what this person must have looked like to have a body mass index of 20. Similarly, think of your body mass index and think about what does a person with a body mass index of 30 look like. So you're kind of comparing here the active individual compared to the inactive individual. And how much influence does physical activity have on aerobic fitness? So you should comment on that. They have it for men and they have it for women as well. You could also look at it and think about sorry about that. Dagnabbit. You could also look at what's the MET level and how fit are these people, how high is a fitness of it looks like 11.5-ish versus what is the fitness of somebody whose aerobic capacity is around 14.5 METs. What does that mean from a practical perspective? So consider that and talk about that as well. I'll be posting a discussion board where you will be addressing those topics.